Welcome to the AFR Saints channel, where we provide you daily content on your favorite team, the New Orleans Saints. Do us a favor and hit that subscribe button. Be sure to leave your comments below and smash that like button. Who dat? On Thursday, we sat right here. We did our mock draft, and at 29, we had the New Orleans Saints selecting Bryan Bresee out of Clemson. And as fate would have it, when the Saints did, in fact, pick at 29, this is how it sounded.
With the 29th pick in the 2023 NFL Draft, the New Orleans Saints select Bryan Bresee, defensive tackle, Clemson.
So that's how it sounded when the Saints made the pick. You know, sometimes in life, things happen just so seamlessly. Have you ever had one of those days when you travel? It's like in Meet the Fockers. You know, at the beginning of Meet the Fockers, where, like, Muse knows it, where, like, what happens, like, they're in the car and all the lights turn green.
All the lights turn green.
They go to the airport and they, like, get upgraded.
To first class. His bag fits.
The bag fits,
Yeah.
yes. It's just, like, everything's perfect.
Everything goes your way.
You know, was there another thing where, like, somebody gave them their seat or something like that? Or a car? Like, anyway, just everything worked. Yesterday was a day where, amid so much chaos in the draft for the Saints, everything just worked very seamlessly. 30 minutes before the draft, there was this wild odds shift where we were all anticipating Will Anderson going number 2, and then it went overwhelmingly C.J. Stroud, and now we know why. Houston pulled a major coup. They got both Stroud and Anderson. They knew that the Titans also wanted Stroud, and they were going to have competition trying to trade to the third pick to get Stroud. So they said, no, you know what we'll do? We'll just take Stroud too, and then we'll have less competition. We'll trade back up to 3 to get Anderson. So there was a ton of chaos. Will Levis falls out of round 1. Jalen Carter took a little bit of a tumble, went all the way down to 9, maybe the best player in the draft. There was a lot of chaos in this draft. I mean, the last pick, Kansas City took some guy I never even heard of. That guy didn't even have a camera on him anywhere, the guy they took. But for the Saints, they just sat there, waited, maybe had a few pops, maybe some caviar. Who knows what they were doing in the war? All they did was just wait. Just sat there and waited, and the exact situation they needed presented itself. Y'all, for as long as we have been previewing this draft, I have said this as many times as a human could possibly say something in the job that I do. The Saints had one must. Not a want, not a need, a must. A no doubt you have got to address this position. And it was defensive tackle. You have two. You have 2 defensive tackles on your team that you signed in free agency. You saw David Onyemata leave. You saw Shai Tuttle leave. You saw Kentavious Street leave. Like, you have 2 defensive tackles. You had to address that position. It wasn't a question of if or we'd like to or, yeah, that's our priority, but if a great player falls. No. That at that position was akin to the year where Max Unger suddenly retired, and all of a sudden you needed a center. So you know what the Saints did with their first pick? They took Eric McCoy. It was in round 2, but it was their first pick of the draft because they needed a center, so they took the best center that was available at that time. And for this team right now, all you had was Colin Saunders and Nathan Shepard that you signed in free agency. Malcolm Roach is still hanging around, maybe a rotational player, but if you're talking about guys that are actually going to be impactful parts of your rotation, play in and play out, snap in and snap out, you had 2. You had to get another one, and you got a dude that fits the mold of what you do. A big 6'5", 6'6", 300-pound interior player who is not only physical but athletic as well, that can be versatile on that defensive front. We know that the Saints love to kick Cam Jordan down inside and get more athletic guys on the field at once. Well, Bresee is a guy that can do that and play and be malleable in that role. So for all of those reasons, I love this pick. It was the thing that, listen, we're not in a vacuum here. We're not the only ones that said it. This was the most commonly mocked player to the Saints, and it's the one that they ended up getting, which was fantastic to see. And Dennis Allen was pretty fired up about it after the draft.
We're excited about the pick. Took a long time to get there. Look, the first thing I'd say is, man, I think our scouting department did a heck of a job in terms of just evaluating these players. Obviously, we got 2 more days, but this player is an exceptional talent. He's big, he's physical, he's athletic. fills a position of need, and I think he's going to be an outstanding addition to our team.
Bresee, for what it's worth, did meet with the media after the draft. He was obviously in pretty good spirits.
I mean, it was super exciting. You know, it's been a lifelong dream of mine to play in the NFL. And, you know, getting that call has been a moment that I've definitely always looked forward to. And to get a call from the Saints was just something you can't even imagine until it happened. So it was really exciting.
This is a guy that when he's been on the field has been very productive. The question with Bresee has been, can he stay on the field? He played in 11 games as a freshman at Clemson. He had 4 sacks as a rotational player, 6.5 tackles for loss. His sophomore year in 2021, he played in just 4 games. We'll come back to that in a minute. And then this past year for Clemson, he played in just 10 games with 5.5 tackles for loss, 3.5 sacks, a couple of passes defended. So he's a very active player. He's a very athletic player. And when he's been on the field, he's been very good. But that, of course, has been sort of the issue, not only with health, but also with personal tragedy. Many people know the story by now that his younger sister died last fall after a battle with cancer. So that took him away a bit as well, compounding with the injuries that he had had. So that had kind of been the question. Dennis Allen was asked about the medicals. And again, I say this every year around the combine, which is the most important part of the combine is not how many times you bench press 225. It's not how fast you run the 40. It is the medicals and the interviews. Are the coaches comfortable with the person? And then are you healthy enough to last? And here's what Dennis Allen said about the medicals.
Look, he went through the whole physical workup. Medically, we felt comfortable with where he was at. And so we felt comfortable with the player and taking the player.
They felt fine with it. So you're talking about a guy who, has had a shoulder surgery during, and that happens, especially playing that physical type of position. Sometimes you have that, but he is the prototype for what the Saints want. 6'6", 300 pounds, and I'd like the pick an awful lot. For what it's worth, Bresee was asked about his health and how that might limit him. This is number 5.
Last year, like you said, was kind of just some crazy things that went on that, is just unexpected. The year before, I had 2 injuries. I had a knee and a shoulder, and I mean, those are the only 2 surgeries I've had in my whole life. So I feel great from them now, have no issues, and I'm ready to go.
So the New Orleans Saints did tremendous due diligence on Bryan Bresee, and they have now remade that defensive line. They're in the process of continuing to remake it. I mean, I'll remind you that when this team was in the midst of setting an NFL record for consecutive games without allowing a 100-yard rusher, you had guys like Sheldon Rankins. You had David Onyemata in the middle. Those players are gone now. You could look at Malcolm Brown, who's gone now. I mean, he's been gone for a couple of years. All of the guys that made up the core and the interior rotation on that defensive front, they are all gone. Every single one of them. That room is completely remade now. And your first 3 you feel very good about. You went and got Colin Saunders, who's a big, like short but rotund run stuffer, blow up the launch pad guy. You had a Nathan Shepard, who's an athletic big as well. And now you got Bryan Bresee, who you hope is that guy that's a pillar on the interior of your defense for a decade to come. And I love the pick. I know sometimes we do get kind of, I don't want to say caught, but we're tempted based on who else is on the board. And, Nolan Smith from Georgia was also on the board. And this is a draft where the Saints could be thinking linebacker. Demario Davis is getting older, and Pete Werner is a great player, but he has been injured as well and injury prone. And obviously Caden Ellis is now in Atlanta. So there certainly would have been temptation to take a linebacker, and especially when you saw a guy like Nolan Smith there on the board. But the need for depth at linebacker does not outweigh your absolute must at defensive tackle. And the guy you wanted was on the board, and they took the player that they wanted and that they needed at that position, and I am completely good with it. And everyone who always bemoans the fact that the Saints end up trading up, they didn't even have to do that, and by all accounts, they didn't even really try to aggressively do that in round 1. Some of the reports today that the teams that did try to make calls, Atlanta tried to trade back into round 1. The Raiders tried to trade back into round 1. Some of the reports that are kind of percolating today, it wasn't the Saints. The Saints tried a year ago. They tried to trade up a year ago. to get a cornerback, to maybe get J.C. Horn or Patrick Surtain. They didn't do that. They were very patient. They let every green light on the road come ahead of them. They just casually cruised right on through the day with a lot of commotion around them, and they got the best player at their biggest position of need. So A-plus for the Saints so far. They've got 7 more picks throughout the remainder of the draft with a lot of needs. It's going to be an exciting weekend around the Houdat's. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact, and be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.